on? Hello, hello. Yes.
All right. I was asked by my husband to introduce our guest tonight, which we don't really consider him a guest. He's just a big brother that runs around the. Actually, he's my little brother.
You're older than me?
I'll be 66 this
Oh, wow.
November. Yeah. So you're my little brother.
Okay.
John Kostick blesses us each Sukkot with his wisdom and his teaching, what Holy Spirit has led him to find and dig out the treasures of the Word. So for each of you who are here, thank you for being here. Thank you to Star and Brian for the wonderful meal. And for each of you who are watching by live stream tonight, I know there's several of you that is having to work late or are sick. We appreciate you being here by live stream. And without further ado, we are going to have what he called a math night tonight. No. Okay, for you on live stream, I was like, oh. But he has something wonderful to start tonight with. So enjoy what he's going to do. Thank you, John, for being here. We appreciate it.
That was the biggest wet blanket invitation. Uh-huh. Oh. But the rest of the night was... Okay. Well, yes, it was going to be math night because Nate, Preacher Man's son, is a math teacher, and he likes... Okay, whatever. But Nate likes math. Unfortunately, Nate's going to be here late, like 20 minutes late. So if I start the math lesson right now, he's going to miss the beginning and the gist and all that. But because it wasn't a full 2-hour talk or hour-and-a-half talk, I went ahead and tacked some stuff on at the end of the math talk, which we're going to do now. And that will... Okay. This, by the way, is the Kyrgyz flag. There you go. Yeah, well, what is it, you ask? Well, I will tell you in a moment. Where I stay, they have 2 flagpoles out front, and I've taken an American flag. They had a Kyrgyz flag, and man, they ran that American flag up right next to it. The 2 of them fly next. It's like whenever I'm in residence, they put the American flag up. But yeah, or the King of England, you know. So their flag got destroyed just from the wind. There's a lot of wind there. And so I bought them a new one and had it put up. Oh, they were over the moon excited. This is a yurt. And this is a lot of people live in yurts out in the country. And, okay, these are nomad people. And it's interesting. And this is what this is going to be. There's no biblical tie-in too much here. This is just a little travel log until Nate gets here soon. Yeah, or they will build these for special occasions. If you're having a funeral, a wedding, some kind of gathering, you will pay a company to come in and build yurts in your yard. And that's where you spend your activity. You know, you eat in there, you sit on the floor. And it's just lots of layers of animal pelts and wools and stuff. Very warm. And this is kind of a modern day yurt. This is a expensive resort. Okay. And but they're shaped like yurts on the outside. And I told you every year we bring all these different people together and give them a lesson and give them just some fun. And I told you one year it was about 2 years ago, I think. we all met in Kyrgyzstan. So I rented a bunch of these very modern yurts up in the mountains. The Indonesian couple, he's a youth pastor, and his wife had never seen snow. They were born on the equator, or they lived the whole life on the equator. And it was just fun to go up there. We each had our own little stove. You can add wood, and you can call room service, and they would march food up the snowy stairs to where you are. But that was the outside and the kind of the view a little bit. And you can see that they were stacked all up the hillside. And this is the inside of one. No, they're closed at the top. And do you notice the top? That's where their flag comes from. Be what? He's gonna so a pipe, yes. So it was, and we spent 2 nights up there, and it was just 2 days, and it was fun to do Bible studies. And they went out and did snow stuff, and you can rent horses and all kind of fun stuff, bow and arrow shooting, and I don't know what all they did. Yes, in fact, that first yurt that I showed you I didn't have a picture of a yurt from Kyrgyzstan, so I showed you a picture of a yurt that I took in Mongolia years ago. But they look the same. Yeah. You just did. It was one of the stands, yep. No, it's, yeah, all of them are. Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. Yeah. Yeah, they are obliged to side with Russia because their alternative is China. Kyrgyzstan borders China on the east. Yeah, and they're not Chinese at all, or so they're gonna. And there's nobody else around them, so it's Russian. This is the Indonesian preacher's wife, first experiencing snow, and that's the two of them. You know, Indonesia is flat and hot. And this is just so different, you know. And that's Kay. That's the one who does my editing. Okay. And Kay. And I told you, some of you knew, we built an apartment building there. And so this was her kitchen in her apartment. And this is one of the bedrooms we decided not to rent out. We would just use it if a preacher needed it, or a pastor, or anybody coming through. In fact, whenever we had our little gathering and brought the Indonesians, they got the empty room. And it's pretty empty. There's a bed, you know. And they had their own bath and a little kitchenette. That's Kay. There's no guy in there, I think. I think that's her too. I think. I don't know who else could it be? Yeah, I don't know who it is. Maybe it's not Kay. I don't know who they are. Oh, well. Got me. Okay, we're going to page up that. Okay.
We are experiencing technical difficulties.
Are we live streaming right now?
Yes, we are.
Wow. Okay. Okay. It's an Excel program. Okay, let's see what this does. Anything? Oh, I didn't want to do that. This is, and again, we've got, is that Nate? Okay, well then we're not going to do this. Are you ready? I'm ready. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, it was just it was filler until he arrived. No, this you're not going to. It was those pictures of the yurts and that was going to be the stuff at the end. I had some Indonesian stuff, but I can't find it, and I think it's online. This is the list I made when I was a kid. This is the modern version of it. I put it in the computer, and so you can see it's and this is the order in which I visited them. So we can scroll through in 2 minutes and just you can have a look. So I was in the year that I went. I was born in the U.S. England was the first big trip in '84. Here I went to South America. You see Colombia, Peru, Southeast Asia, China, Malaysia. Here's Moldova, Ukraine, Latvia in '87, Venezuela. There's some Caribbean, Central America, Turkey, Cyprus, South Pacific, Korea. This is Indonesia. Central America. Does this interest anybody at all? Or should we go to the... Southeast Asia, here's Jersey and Guernsey. There's the Channel Islands between Europe and England. Tonga, Samoa, Vanuatu, this was all South. And these South Pacific, this wasn't a cruise. We had to fly from one to the next to the next. I probably had, yeah. Here's Eastern Europe in '94. Here's South Africa, Namibia, Swaziland. Spitsbergen, there's one that's like the most northern, it's a couple hour flight north of northern Norway. Go all the way to the top of Norway and then fly a couple hours north. You're real close to the North Pole. It's dark 24 hours a day in the winter, and that's when I went. They give you a gun, a rifle. If you're going from the hotel downtown, take this rifle in case of polar bear. Like, what am I? So, Vaughn? No. Did I have any government resistance to preaching gospel? But I don't let them know I'm there either, so. Here's Scandinavia. Here's any others. Here's North Africa, Morocco, Mediterranean, Canaries. Western Sahara, that was, we should have a talk just on some of these some days. Easter Island, that's not easy to get to. That's like 5-hour flight from Chile out into the middle of the ocean. Nepal, India, Sikkim, Caribbean, West Africa, Europe, Luxembourg is more Caribbean. Here's Middle East, Dubai, Sharjah, Fujairah. It's Indian Ocean Islands, Madagascar, Reunion, Mauritius, Seychelles, Djibouti, Greenland, Iceland, Panama, Cuba. Then you couldn't fly to Cuba. You could fly there from a third country So I went to Panama, and then you can fly to. Have some Madeira, my dear. This is Mediterranean islands, North Africa. Libya. I had to get from Tunisia to Malta. There was a cheap flight, $150 or something, and there was an expensive flight, $350, and it stopped in Libya. And I don't have a visa for Libya, but if I'm just in transit, all is well. And I had, I think, 28,000 US dollars in my bag. And I had to get, again, from Tunisia to Malta. And so I didn't want to have it in my carry-on, so I packed it in all my dirty laundry. Crazy story. And so I checked the bag, so it's going under the plane. And in Libya, I had 2 or 3 hours till the next flight. And then when it's time for the next flight, you walk out onto the tarmac, and they bring everybody's bag and have them lined up on the tarmac, and you point, that's my bag. He picks it up, puts it on the plane, and you walk up the steps. So if you're going, if your bag's going, you're going. So if it's going to blow up, you're going to blow up together. And so everybody's bag is there, and my bag's not there. I said, my bag's not here. And I'm thinking, oh, my goodness. They're rooting through it in the back and finding all my money, you know. No. I said, my bag's not here. And they said, well, wait, we'll go look. And they went and looked, and they found it and brought it out. But that was like 10 minutes of a little tenseness that, like, nobody found it. I mean, yeah, they didn't find it, so it was all was well. That was my visit to Libya. 3 hours in the airport, transit lounge. But you know what? More than you've been there. It counts. That's my game. And sometime I remember to tell you why I had 28,000 cash. That's another good story. But it's nothing illegal. Yeah, they never found it. There's Japan and some North Pacific islands, Guam, Albania, Belarus. The minute you land, I walked in the hotel, there were prostitutes. And they check in. When I was opening my room for the first time, the phone was ringing. It was the prostitutes calling every 10 minutes. The next day, I've never paid for a prostitute except once, and it was this woman. She accosted me in the morning, midday or something, and I said, I'm not interested in that. But if you want to have lunch, I'll buy you lunch. And we ended up sitting talking for 3-4 hours, and I told her about Christianity and the gospel, and she told me about her divorce and her life, and and I think when it was all done, I think I gave her $30 or something. Just, God bless you. And but that was in Belarus. Cocos Island and Christmas Island. That's off the western coast of Australia. Perth, and then you fly north, and then you fly out into the ocean for those two. Christmas Island was covered with red crabs, tens of thousands of them. They come up out of the ocean, climb up to the top of the mountain, reproduce, and then go back to the ocean. So when you're driving the car, it's like crunch, 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 because it's just solid red crabs. Chatham Island, that is, you fly to the South Island of New Zealand, and then it's like 5 hours out into the South Pacific. There's nothing there but some sheep and just a handful of people. And I think that was one of the most remote places I've ever been. Tibet, that's a little trickier to get into. In the summer I was there, and it was it's very high up, so you get a lot of direct sunlight. So you don't have to worry about sunburn. It gets warm during the day. Where's one here? Mali. My friend calls and says, John, you've taken me everywhere. Where do you want to go? I said, I've never been to Timbuktu, which is in Mali, and I'd like to go there. He said, book it. I'll go with you. I thought that was very nice of him. And so we allowed for 8 days. We got to Mali, and there was all kind of terrorism going on in Timbuktu. These extreme Muslims from the Sahara came in, and they were killing people, and they were torching and burning, and so they just said, you just can't go. They'll kill you. So we stayed in the capital for 8 days playing gin. We had nothing else planned. We did cross over into Guinea. We rented a taxi. It was maybe a 2-hour drive to the border, and I crossed over and put my foot in Guinea, and then went back to the capital. So we got that. And then when we were leaving, we all get to the my old friend Tom, and we get to the airport, and there's an airplane, and it's surrounded by security guards with machine guns. And I mean, maybe this is how they do it in, war-torn I don't know, Africa, I don't know. But we get on the plane, we fly out, we land in Amsterdam, go into Harlem, and I check the news, and I said, Tom, there was a coup this morning in Mali. Well, we left this morning in Mali. And as soon as we left, there was some coup where the army took over and the president had to escape. And I mean, it could be, yeah. But that was, and he kind of laughed like, ha, ha, ha. I said, Tom, I'm not kidding. Look at the headline. Yeah. This one was difficult. Sudan, Chad, Lebanon, Eritrea. It was like, 42 hours. I was doing it all first class, which was nice, or business class. I cashed in air miles, so it was all free, which was nice. But I picked the most circuitous route. I got to stop in Eritrea, and then I got to stop in Sudan. I mean, what a hellhole, who chooses to lay over in Sudan? But I wanted to scratch it off. And so that was just 42 hours of airplane food and airplane sleeping. We're at 2013. There's Kyrgyzstan for the first time. 2015. And there's Sri Lanka, Maldives, Andaman, this is all Indian Ocean, Bangladesh, Bhutan, that's not easy to get to. Afghanistan, not easy to get to. Pakistan was 11 hours in the airport, very cold. In Kabul, just a regular Kabul airport. North Korea, there's one you don't. Followed by Iran. East Timor. They had Jewish synagogues in East Timor. I was just so shocked. Guyana, French Guiana, Suriname, that's the top of South America. A little Caribbean here, Somalia. Oh, that's it. And these are the ones I have left. A lot of they're from the South Pole. Antarctica is divided up like a pie. Each different country owns. So the best thing I figure is you go to the center, take a few steps out, walk in a circle, and you've hit all 9 pieces, right? The problem is tours to the center, which they have, start at like $55,000. So, this is one that we're thinking of hopefully going to right here, St. Helena in May. That's where they sent Napoleon when the British wanted rid of him for good. And he ended up dying there. They buried him, and then they ended up moving him back to Paris. But his grave is still there. That's kind of their claim to fame. Here's some in the South Pacific. Pitcairn, very hard to get to. Lord Howe's becoming hard to get to because of the woke. We got to preserve it. They only allow so many people a year in there. I think Johnston Island, you can't get there anymore. Wake Island is all military. I don't think you can get there. But I'm going to try. Okay, so that's...
And the amazing thing is he visited all of these places for a total of $42.50.
Teaching the what? I always had success in New Zealand. They were always very nice. China. If I encounter military or political, you cannot do that. I mean, why not? You don't ask questions. You just don't do that. I'm going to do it, No, and they just get so frustrated because they don't understand freedom. All right. Yes. Yeah, I was to Kyrgyzstan, 3 nights in the bad hotel. Airline canceled the flight, put me 3 nights in a good hotel, and he was the night clerk. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Just a reminder of the Hebrew alphabet and the gematria values. You're probably not going to keep notes on this because it's very math. And there are some higher numbers, right? The final forms. We're not going to use too much gematria tonight. Here's the Greek equivalent. They call it isopsephy. All right? And we're going to focus right now on the word bara, which is the second word of the Bible, Bereshit, bara. It's Bet Resh Aleph. What do we know about Bet Resh? Bar, which means son. Aleph, God. So, son of God. But, it's not what it means. Bara does not mean son of God, but it's hidden in there. Bara actually means create, okay? And there's a special form that it uses here. It can also mean not just create. It can mean fatten. It can mean fill. And it's only used as a verb to create, and when it's used that way, it's to create out of nothing. Okay? And only God uses this verb. So you'll never see, and then Abraham bara something, or Jacob bara. No. Only Elohim baras. Okay? So it's creating from nothing. And in Greek, I think, or is that Latin? Greek. Ex nihilo means from nothing, okay, which is something only God can do. And here's the first 3 words, Bereshit, bara, Elohim. This has nothing to do with today's lesson, but I did think I'd throw it in anyway. Bereshit, notice how it begins, Bet Resh Aleph. And the second word is bara, Bet Resh Aleph. So it's a repeat, okay, it must be important, those two. And that word bara here represents created or creator, and it gives a hint that it's the Son of God is the creator, right? So Yeshua, Jesus, is the bara here. In that first word, Bereshit, notice, we'll put him here, Bereshit, bara, Elohim. In Bereshit, in the center you have an aleph and a shin. Aleph shin is the Hebrew word aish, which is fire, okay? And around it you have, get back here, where'd you go? Bet Resh Yod Tav. Bet Resh Yod Tav is the word brit, which is covenant. So in that word Bereshit, you have a picture of the Abrahamic covenant, because you have a fire. Remember, God walked between the cut pieces. So he's hidden the Abrahamic covenant in that word Bereshit, okay? And the Aish, by the way, Aish we usually see as representing the Holy Spirit, right? Wasn't the fire in Acts chapter 2, and then that big pillar where they were following in the wilderness, is that the Holy Spirit? So there's a good chance there that's that. Bereshit has the Holy Spirit hidden in it with Aish. Bara, that kind of points to Son of God, because it's Bar Aleph, Son of God. Elohim is God, and it's the plural, Elohim. So he kind of has the Trinity hidden in the first three words. Yes, Bereshit has the Holy Spirit and the Son and the Father. Could be. And in that word, okay, Bereshit is in beginning, bara, create, Elohim, God. They put the verb before the noun, right? And in Hebrew, or in English, we have subject-verb agreement, right? If I want to say they, I would say create. They create, correct? Or I could say he creates, right? Hebrew has the same concept. You have to have a subject-verb agreement. And here you have Elohim is a plural ending. And bara, and again, I don't know Hebrew, I don't teach Hebrew, but I know little rules about Hebrew. Hebrew has pronouns that they build in to the verb. So, ends in an aleph, and then that is a pronoun that you would use for he, not for they, okay? So this would be like third person, that's singular, he, right? So this would be like saying they creates, which is wrong, right? You don't say they creates. But it's not wrong in one instance with God, because he can be they and he can be he, right? He's 3 in 1. So that's kind of cool that it's actually grammatically incorrect if anybody else you're talking about, okay? Those inserted pronoun, they're called pronomial suffixes. You put a certain letter at the end of a verb, and it'll tell you whether it's he or she or it or they or whatever. Okay. So now let's get into tonight's topic, which was, we said this bara, ex nihilo, creating from nothing. Okay. So let's hear who we have as nothing here. There's 0. All right. And 1 will represent unity. It represents God. He's first, right? And it'll represent something. And if we put the two together, if we take nothing and divide it by 1, you end up getting the Greek letter phi. Okay? And the concept of it is nothing split by unity. And you can see it looks like nothing split by 1, right? All right? And if we start with nothing, and we add 1 or add God to nothing, then you have something. And by the way, the math that we're going to do today is going to be addition, easy peasy. There's going to be some long division, but I'm going to do the division for you, and you can just trust me that I divided it right, okay? So don't get all your knickers in a knot because I'm not good at math. It doesn't matter, okay? Now, the first 3 we got here, 0 plus 1 equals 1. If I take the pluses and equals out and just look at it as 3 numbers, this is what is something is called a Fibonacci series. And the way we got these numbers is we took 0 and 1 and added them together and got the third. If I want the fourth number in this series, I will add the second and third together. So, for example, 1 plus 1, 2. If I want the next number, it's going to be 1 plus 2, 3. Next number, 5. You know, a series of numbers, this is going to just follow some pattern, right? If I ask you for the series of even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? Odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 6. This is its own little ruled series, right? Just take the last two and add them together. 3 and 5, 8. 5 and 8, 13. Any problems so far? Okay. It's early. Well, you all grown when you heard math, so I want to try to spoon feed you here. Okay, now, so that series, and you can keep going, right? How far? Infinity, right? And this series of numbers, it doesn't look anything special, but it's special. God does really cool things with this particular series of numbers where you always just add the next, okay? And I'm going to show you a few of them. One is if we square each digit. Well, you know what squaring is, right? You just multiply times itself. Well, 0 times 0 is 0, 1, 1. 2 times 2 is 4. No problem? Okay, so that's x squared. And you'll notice when you do, this becomes a new series, right? It's a new series. You took the Fibonacci and you squared each one. When you do that, any two in the new series will add together and its result will be in the original. That's one of its claims to fame. So here, 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 4 is 5. 4 and 9 is 13. Any two that are next to each other, if you add them together, if you add their squares together, it will end up another number that's in the Fibonacci series, the original. Okay, that's kind of clever. You can see it continues on. If you, did you understand that? Okay. If you add up the first three squares, 1, 1, and 4, you get 6. If we add the first one, I left the 0 off, you see. 1, 1, 4, 9, I'm adding these squares, I get 15. I continue, add up to 25, I get 40. Add up to 64, I'm adding up the squares, 104. You see how I got those? And there's a tie-in with those. Just adding together the sum of the squares, they also are going to reflect the original. You want to see how? Look at 6, right? 6 is 2 times 3. 15, 3 times 5. 40. Okay. So that's kind of cool that, okay, tip of the iceberg. Don't, save your wows. Save your wows, because you're going to need them. Ooh, ah. Okay, so that's kind of cool that they're connected somehow. Now, if I take these numbers in the original Fibonacci series and I divide any one of them by its predecessor. So I'm going to start here. 1 divided by 1 is, thank you, it's 1, okay? I could have started here, 1 divided by 0, but everyone knows that 1 divided by 0 is undefined. You can't do that, right? Or it could be infinity. Okay, we don't know what it is. All right. So we're going to just do these. 1 divided by 1 is 1. The next one was 2 divided by 1, 2. Next one would have been 3 divided by 2. You see what I'm doing? Okay. 5 divided by 3 is 1.6666. 8 divided by 5, 1.6. You're going to start seeing a pattern. 13 divided by 8 is 1.625. 21 divided by 13, 1.61538. Anyone seeing any pattern? There's a 1.61 that keeps going, right? And what's happening is, here, this is 1. That's a little bit low. The next one is 2. That's too big. 1.5 comes this way. 1.666, 1.6, 1.625. You see what's happening? It's back and forth, and it's kind of zeroing in. Right? It goes a little bit low, and then a little bit high, then a little bit low, then a little bit high. And it just keeps zeroing in on something, okay? And I'm going to keep going. I'm even going to go further. Here, trust me, these are the next Fibonacci numbers in the series. And you can see it's getting tighter and tighter into, okay, 1.61803. And if you went, I think, let's see, here's numbers way in the future. Here's one, 196,418. That's a Fibonacci number. And the next one after that is 317,811. And if I divide this divided by that, I get that. Okay? And what's happening is these numbers are getting closer and closer and closer and closer and more perfect and more small to this number right here. 1.618033988, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. Okay? And that number mathematicians call phi. Okay? Which is this is that Greek we saw at the beginning, which is nothing divided by 1. Right? Okay? So, and they call this the golden ratio. All right? This phi, 1.618. All right? You can see how it's lining up when you're dividing, right? And imagine if you went way, 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 way out to infinity or near infinity, it's going to even get closer to this magic number, okay? So it's the golden ratio. A ratio, is like a fraction, right? 1/2 is a ratio, 1/2, okay? So here, the ratio of this square is 1:1. The height is 1, the length is 1, right? If I cut it in half and move this over, look at that animation. Woo, that was cool. Let's see that again. You want to see it again? Because it only took half a day to figure out how to do that. Kay actually did it. So, but I told her I wanted what I wanted. So if I extend it by an extra half, now my rectangle has a proportion of 1 to 1.5. Instead of 1.5, I want a little bit more than 1.5. I want, where'd it go? 1.61803. I want this side to be 1 and this side to be phi. And remember, when I say phi, what do I mean? 1.608. Okay. So that's the golden ratio, that rectangle that's 1 by phi. Okay? And you can look at it mathematically, and what you're saying is A, which is this side here, A plus B divided by A is the same as A divided by B. Proportion-wise, it will be the same. 1 to 1.618, okay, or 1.618 to 1. Okay. Now this number has some other cool things that happens to it. One is if I take the number phi and square it, that's phi times phi, which if you had to do multiply and it goes out to infinity, it would be very difficult to do, but you could, if you did it a million places times a million places, you will get 2.6180339. All of this stays exactly the same. That's odd. Okay? That's a very strange number. Okay? And you saw how we generated it, right? Just started with 0 plus 1, 1. 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 2, 3. You understand? It's very simple, but it's turning into some really cool math. All right? Here's another neat thing about it. If you take 1 and divide it by phi, so it's 1 divided by 1.61803, you get, you ready for this? 0.618033. Again, all these trailing numbers are exactly the same, only the first digit. Now that's weird, right? This is 1. I didn't do both of them.
Well, no, I'm talking about them both doing that in pairs.
Yes. Okay. Here I went ahead. Anything new on this page? No. They also call it, instead of the golden ratio, they call it the divine proportion. Divine meaning of God, right? So because it does all these magical things mathematically, maybe there's something special about it with God, okay? Here is technically the math formula. I'm going to let Nate look at it for 10 seconds. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. The rest of us, we're going to move on. Yeah, that's mathematically how you generate, okay? That's how you'd write it in math. You can also come up with this number phi by doing this little formula, which is the square root of 1 plus the square root of 1 inside it, plus the square root of 1 through infinity. You do it forever. And if you figure out how to do that, you will come up with 1.618, okay? The problem with this is too many square roots. You like that? This is another way you can generate that number, which is also, I wouldn't even know where to begin, and I was a math teacher. So here's another way you can generate that. It's interesting that there are little formulas that generate this magic number besides the way we did it, which is just, they do have ones in them, yes. Here's 1 plus the square root of 5 divided by 2. The square root of 5 is one of those irrational 2.236 goes on and on, never ends, never repeats. You add 1 to it and divide, and you will come up with phi. Okay? The sign of 666 is that which is negative. If you multiply it times negative 2, you'll get phi. Why you do that, but or the cosine of 216, and 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, but that is also the same number. You multiply it times negative 2, you'll get phi. So there are some other tie-ins to it. Golden ratio. So here are all the different ways we saw you can get that, right? You do the square, many square roots, this. Okay, or the way we did it originally, just adding in, okay. Now, if you take this Fibonacci series, and we're going to draw a little picture, this is a 1 by 1. We're taking these here, 1 by 1. I got a little square here, yep. Okay, the next one, remember you would then add 1 and 1 gives you 2. So now we have a 2 by 1. And I've put an extra box. This is 2. This is 1. Yes? The next one is going to be a 3 by 2. Right? So I have to have 3 here and 2 here. And what I've done is I've added a box. Correct? The next one's going to be a 5 by 3. And what did I do? I added a 3 by 3 box here. So now that's 5 by 3. Got it? I'm just graphing out each subsequent one. It's always a rectangle. Here's an 8 by 5. And by the way, on any of these, if I want to know the proportion of this box, it's 5 by 8, but if you reduced it, it's 1 to 1.6. Right? And the bigger the boxes I make, the next one's going to be 13 by 8. This is 1 by 1.625. I can just keep adding, and when I do, it's the rectangle is getting closer and closer to 1.618 to 1, the perfect divine rectangle, okay? We'll go to the next one here is the 13 by 8. The next one is 34 by 21. You see what's happening? Okay. And I continued on. I didn't draw pictures for them, but you can see I just keep going, and it's getting closer and closer to our magic number, phi. And this is cool. It doesn't matter. We started with 0 and 1, didn't we? We can start with any two numbers. I randomly picked 10 and 41. And watch what, these are my first years, like 0 and 1 we started with. Watch. 10 and 41 give you 51. And so the next one's going to be 41 and 51 give you 92. Which is 1 point. This one's very small. This one, if you divide, gets bigger. Back and forth. This one gives you this. You see what we're doing? I just randomly picked. It doesn't matter which two you pick. They will eventually go down to that 1 to 1.6, okay? It may take a little bit longer if you pick two numbers that are far apart, but you got to go to infinity. They will eventually zero in on this divine proportion. Everybody with me? Okay. What's next? Now, if we take that rectangle thing that we just did, right, and I start in the center, and remember, bara is to create from nothing. So we can start there in the center, and we're going to create you see what happens? We get a spiral that comes out of there, okay? And this spiral kind of rules the universe. God uses this growth spiral everywhere. And we're going to show you some places. Here's a pine cone. Do you notice how this pine cone, it starts here, and see the spiral coming out? Here's another one, a row, a spiral. Here's one that comes out here. Understand? Pine cones just grow that way. I think we have one here, don't we? We have a pine cone. There it is. Sunflowers. Yep. You see the pattern, the spiral? In fact, it has a double spiral. You see the seeds that the spirals go this way, and they have another spirals that go this way. You see it? Okay? And this is interesting, that the number of spirals, so here's one right here, a spiral, and it's going into the center. And then there's one next to it, and one next to it, and one next to it. How many spirals are coming out from the center? On a sunflower, there are 34 spirals. Why is 34 important? Because it's one of those Fibonacci numbers. Remember, it was 8, and then I forget the next one, and then there you go. 13, 21, 30, no. What? What? All right. But it's interesting. And if you look at things like petals on a flower, the number of petals on a flower is going to be a Fibonacci number. You'll have 5 petals, or you'll have 8 petals, or you'll have 13 petals. And this is, you might have a rare exception, but things grow according to these numbers. Okay? So God planned this, you understand? This is not just, here's a tree, and in the first year you got the first little bit coming up. In the next season, it branches out and you have 2. And the next season, you end up having 3 branches. And then the next season, you have 5 branches. And the next one, 8 branches, 13 branches. You see how a tree will grow, and each one of those is a Fibonacci number. With me? Okay. A nautilus shell, it has that growth spiral. Okay. A seahorse tail has the growth spiral. I have a picture of a ram's, unfortunately I didn't have time to get it up here, but a ram's horn is going to grow in that growth spiral. Okay, watch this. If you have bunny rabbits, you know this? You've seen before? Here's a pair of rabbits, a male and a female. They're very young. They're lowercase m and f, okay? So it's a male bunny and a female bunny. You have one pair. And then a month later, in the first month they're born. The second month they're growing. The third month they're reproducing. Okay? They reproduce like rabbits. So we still have just one pair, right? The next one we do, the next month, this pair was born, here this pair was growing, and now this pair is grown and it creates a new pair. So we had one, then we had one, now we have 2 pair. Well, that's how the Fibonacci began, remember? There was a 1 and a 1 and a 2. Okay? And then the next month, what happens? This pair is still adults, and so they have another babies, right? This pair is growing. And how many pair do we have total? 3, which is the next Fibonacci number. The next month, this pair is still producing. Its last month is now growing. This pair is now adult and having its own. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pair. 5 is Fibonacci number. Next one, and it's that same logic. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it has 8 pair. And if you do the same logic, the next one has 13 pair. So rabbits are going to reproduce in a Fibonacci series. Okay? The human fetus kind of takes the Fibonacci growth spiral. DNA. DNA is measured in very small things called angstroms. If you want to, it's a very small unit. But the width of DNA molecule is 21 angstroms, and the length, and I don't want to say length, but what do you call it? The cycle, the frequency of the series or whatever, from here until where it repeats. It's period. Should have known that. It's 34 angstroms. Well, 21 and 34, 21, 34 are both Fibonacci numbers. So he's even woven this Fibonacci-ness into DNA. Okay? 34 over 21 is 1 to 1.61. Okay? The cochlea in your ear, okay, spiral. There. Yeah, it could also mean 2, I think. The human body, if you had to divide the human body, the obvious place I would think would be your belly button, right? And that would be everything up and everything down. That's kind of where we get started from, right? But on the average person, from the belly button to the top of their head is 1, and from the belly button to the floor is 1.618. Okay? A lot of I think they say that this is 1, and this is 1.618. Sometimes you'll see somebody and you go, oh, they look odd. The reason they don't look right is because they're not in the divine proportion, right? They're too tall, or they're too short, or they're too whatever. Okay? Now, the Sistine Chapel, you know this, right? We're going to look at this panel from it right here. This is the creation of Adam by Michelangelo. I do like this. Notice, maybe this is the creation panel. Look at God's arm. His arm is very extended, and his finger is very extended. Adam's arm is a little less, and his hand is kind of, I'm reaching for God. Well, if I get the time, I might. I don't know. It's God is reaching for us. Man does not reach for God. And Michelangelo captured that minor thing, but it's a major thing. But I think it's there. But if you'll notice that the proportions that Michelangelo used from the shoulder to the elbow is 1, and then from the elbow to the finger 1.618. So you wonder why a certain piece of art is a great work of art. It's because they got the right proportions, and they're zeroing in on the golden proportion. You understand? You can see it over with God's arm also. You got 1 to 1.618. You can look at from the elbow to the wrist and the wrist to the hand. Wrist to the hand is 1, hand to the elbow 1.618. Okay? You can see it on God's hand as well. If you look at the finger, from the first knuckle to the here this is 1, and from that knuckle to the nail is 1.618. And if you look at the very end, your last 2 knuckles, there's the little one at the end is 1, and then 1.618. Okay, so it follows through all over the body. Okay, and even the design of the work kind of has a flow of the growth spiral. Does anyone know what this is? When I was searching for this picture, I was searching for this picture, and this came up. This is above Liberace's bed. Not surprised. You know, it's all about man. He painted God out of the picture. You know, interesting. Your face has a 1 by 1.6. You know, and if you measure things like from your eye to your forehead, this is 1, and then this is 1.618. You know, it's all through your face. Mona Lisa has kind of a, and Leonardo da Vinci would definitely have known about the golden ratio. Okay. Oh, good. Huh? Yes. Yeah. It looks right. And we know Leonardo da Vinci, he did some drawings here with proportions, right? The Vitruvian Man. And Fibonacci, you can look where he was born. He was born back in the 1100s. So he was long before Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. But he came up with this. So this proportion was known in Leonardo's time, because he came 300 years later and he came 350 years later. They knew about this, okay, and they kind of perfected it. All right. Musically, the Fibonacci's everywhere. Look at it. Look at a keyboard here. An octave consists of 13 notes. 13 is a Fibonacci number, okay, of which 8 are white, and 8 is a Fibonacci number. And if you take 13 divided by 8, 1.625, so you got Fibonacci showing up there. The white keys, there are 8. The black keys is 5. 5 is a Fibonacci number. I mean, you'll hear, you know, when your little kid gets up and starts pounding on the thing, and it's bad to the ears, because he's not playing Fibonacci series numbers. He's playing numbers that shouldn't be together, and it sounds bad to our ears. That's what's coming next. A scale is composed of 8 notes, a Fibonacci number. The first, third, and fifth form a basic chord, and 1, 3, 5 are Fibonacci numbers. You see, there's just a perfection, or something that it fits. Okay. And we have the bass clef, right? We have the treble and the bass. The bass clef, notice, is a growth spiral, right? So no surprise there. Hurricanes blow in a growth spiral. All right. Oh, this is very cool. Here's the Earth in the center. And this, we just did this last couple months ago there in Kyrgyzstan. We were doing it with the moon, because I'm not really big in astronomy. But one night the moon was right there, and I said, that's kind of cool, huh? Yeah, it was orange or something. And the next night, around the same time, I said, hey, look, Max, the moon's here. The next night it was here and here. And we watched it for a month, and it went the whole way around, and it got bigger and bigger and then smaller and smaller. And I went, I can see how you could plot out these different things. I've never done it. I knew it could be done, but that was kind of the first time I actually visually paid attention to it. Which is odd because the universe revolves around me. You would think I would be paying attention, but I wasn't. But if you look at the Venus, if you look at the planet Venus, and here it is today, and then tomorrow it's here, and tomorrow it's here, and the next day, and you map it out, and here you are right here on Earth. This is the shape it's going to make if you map it out over a year. I never think to draw it out, but that's a very beautiful pattern that Venus makes compared to where we're seeing it, you know? And you can see when here Venus comes in, it's coming in, it's moving forward, and then all of a sudden, it's moving backwards. And then it goes forward again. When it does that backwards thing, that's called retrograde motion. And it looks like, remember, if you're sitting on a train and there's a train next to you and that train starts going, you feel like you're backing up, you know. That's kind of what happens here when you see Venus backing up. It's not backing up. We're not backing up. I don't know. I'm not very good at explaining it, but you understand. Because I said you understand. Successful, this pattern that it's doing is called an inferior conjunction whenever they line up. And it's very near the ratio of 13 to 8, both Fibonacci numbers, okay? This is an inferior conjunction whenever you have Earth and planets between Earth and the Sun, okay? And this is the superior conjunction, but this is what we're looking at that forms that, okay? So Venus orbits the Sun 1.625 times in one Earth year, so it's 1 to 1.6, okay? Galaxies are spiral in shape, okay? So we've seen examples of Fibonacci showing up extremely small, right, in DNA. And we've seen some medium-sized Fibonacci applications in hurricanes. And we've seen some really big ones in galaxies. Which, by the way, did you see? This was on the news today. I was watching the TV. I guess there's a circus in town in Knoxville. And one of the fortune tellers, who was a midget, which you wouldn't be surprised to find in a circus, got into a fight with one of the clowns, killed him. The police came, and this guy took off running. They're looking for him now. He's somewhere in the Knoxville area. But the headline in the paper, did you see it? It said, small, medium, at large. That was gold. That was comedy gold. Okay. I've been waiting a year to use that joke. So let's maybe find a biblical application to any of this. But, you know, just looking at nature, you see all the places in these. He told Noah, make an ark of gopher wood, make it with rooms, cover inside and out with pitch. That word for ark is tabah, okay? And the ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. So that's actually proportional of what the ark would have looked like. A really long, like a box of government cheese. Okay? And if you take any two of them, 50 divided by 30, which is 5 by over 3, which is Fibonacci numbers 1.6. Okay? It's a little bit off, but they are Fibonacci numbers. The width over the length gives you 1.666, which is it's the numbers, but it's still a little bit off. Here it says, they shall construct an ark. This is a different ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. This, by the way, remember, the Noah's Ark is a tabah. The Ark of the Covenant is Aron. In English, we call them both arks, but they're completely different words in Hebrew, okay? But if it's 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5, proportionally, if I multiply each one by 2, that becomes 3 by 5 by 3. It's 3 by 5, which is Fibonacci numbers. Okay? Yeah, this is just stressing that they are two different words, Tabah and Aron, for the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. So the Fibonacci series, 3 by 5. This is interesting. If you take Jesus' name, which is Eusus in Greek, adds up to 888, and Christos adds up to 1480. Okay. By the way, if I just take the digits of his name, the digits are 8 and 8 and 8 and 1, 4, 8, 0. Those add up to 37, which 37s are everywhere. But 888 is 296 times 3. 1480 is 296 times 5. So the ark is a 3 by 5, both Fibonacci numbers. Okay? Oh, wrong button. There we go. Let's look at Yahweh's name. Yud, He, Vav, He. If we put Yud over Vav, Yud is 10 over Vav, 6. 10 over 6 is 5 over 3. 5 over 3 are Fibonacci numbers. Is it spectacular? Maybe. Is it coincidence? I don't think so. He could have used any other letter, but didn't have a Fibonacci number involved, but he didn't. It's not the 1.618 goes to infinity, but it's the beginning of it, and they're Fibonacci numbers. If we do Yod plus Vav, so Yod and Vav is 16 over He and He. So that's 16 over 10, which is 8 over 5, both Fibonacci numbers. Yep, and if we do it the other way, Vav over Yod, 6 over 10, which is 3 over 5, comes out to be 0.6, which is 1 over 5, which we showed you that earlier. And the same with these. Put the He's on top, and you'll get 0.625. So Yahweh's name incorporates the Fibonacci series. What else we got? There are 66 books in the Bible, 39 old, 27 new. What do we do here? 66 total. Yeah, here's, if we add them all up, 66. I would think the center point of the Bible, or I don't know the center point, but the dividing point, I guess, is old and new, and Jesus is born in Matthew, right? That's where we're introduced to him. So that should be a kind of an important point. Let's see what happens here. If I take 66 books and divide it by the golden ratio, I end up getting 40.79. And 40, the 40th book of the Bible is Matthew. Is that the Atlanta couple? Ralph and Johnny Sue? No, I got you mixed up with somebody else. Never mind. I know. How are you? You're late. Do you have a note? So, even if you just take the Bible, the 66 books, and look through where's the golden ratio point, it hits at Matthew, right where the old and new and Jesus introduced. Okay. Here we take Jesus Christ, is Iusos Christos. I'm going to put in the gematria values, right? This is 888. This is 1480. We already showed you that. Christos divided by Iusos. So, yes, 1480 over 888 comes out to be 1.666, which is, these would be Fibonacci numbers. Iusos Christos over Christos. So 888 plus 1480 over 1480 is 2368 over 1480 is 1.6. So it's just there. Okay. Now, we're going to play a little game, and here's how it works. If, this is the Fibonacci series, if the number is 0, we do nothing. If the number is odd, we're going to turn left and go 1 unit. If the number is even, we're going to turn right and go 1 unit. Okay? And our direction is this way. You can see the arrow. We're going to start right here at this point, and we're going that way. The first number in the Fibonacci is 0. So what do? Nothing. We're going to stay right there. The next number is 1. It's odd. I'm going to go left, which is up 1 unit. Next number, 1, which is left 1 unit. So I'm going to go left 1 unit. Next number is 2. That's an even number, so I'm going to go right 1 unit. Then I got 3 left, 5 left, 8 right, left, left. Right, left, left, right. So, I think God knows about Fibonacci numbers. He's incorporated them in everything. Oh, yeah, we have a little bonus here. How are we doing on time? We're okay. Remember we showed you the rectangle thing, right? If I put 37 in each of the little rectangle boxes that we have created, okay? So there's 37 in that box. There's 37 in that box. Here, 1 plus 2 is 2 by 3. Put 37 in each of those. 37s, 37s. You see what I'm doing? Okay. When I do that, this is a 5 by 8, right? So there's 40 little boxes here. 40 times 37 is 1480. 1480 is Christos. So it does, That Fibonacci forms those nice boxes, and if you put 37, which is God's number, into there, it's going to come out to 1480, which is Christos. If I do the next size box, and I put 37s in all those, here I have 64 boxes times 37 is 2368. Christos is 1480. 888 is Jesus. If I add 888 and 1480, I get 2368. So that big red box there is Jesus and Christ. So it's definitely connected, okay? And you could separate it this way also. 1480, you got it twice, and 888 down the center. So you have Jesus and Christ on either side. The end. For speaking inquiries, Dutch Uncle John .org. Yahoo. That took a day. So yeah, that'll be in the video. Not okay. 20 after. Are we done? Don't want to go home? Okay. Yeah, I don't have. I had some Indonesian stuff I was going to show you, but I think had it online. I got to pull it offline, and so. All right, let's have a little prayer here. Dear Heavenly Father, awesome God, thank you for showing us all this cool math that you have woven into your creation and your book and you. And just thank you for showing it to us and revealing it. And we just ask that you bring us back safely tomorrow to learn more. And we ask for peace in Jerusalem. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.